ready to unlock a whole new level.
Yeah.
I think everybody listening is ready to unlock a new level.
Yeah.
And we've got the treasure map right here, courtesy of the one and only Myles Munroe.
Love him.
This is going to be good. I am so excited to dive into his wisdom on what to protect if we really want to flourish, you know?
Yeah.
What do we need to safeguard?
It's interesting, actually, because when I think about Myles Munroe, so much of what I appreciate about his perspective is how he frames personal growth.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just this outward stuff.
Right.
It's like you've got this treasure chest inside of you. How do you protect what's in there?
Oh, I like that.
So that you can actually flourish.
Yeah. Okay, so first up, picture this.
Yeah.
You're starting a fire, right? You wouldn't toss your most valuable possession right into the flames before it's ready.
No.
You'd want to make sure that, you know, the fire's right, the conditions are right.
Right.
And that's kind of how Munroe treats this idea of dreams and visions.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's almost counterintuitive to what we're told a lot, right? Which is like, shout your goals from the rooftops.
Yeah.
But he really talks about how in their early stages, dreams are so vulnerable.
Right.
They're like seedlings. They need the right conditions to thrive.
It's so true.
And if you're sharing them prematurely, it can actually really backfire.
Yeah.
Because then you're just exposing yourself to all this negativity and doubt.
It's like you're trying to dig for gold with like a flimsy little shovel.
Right.
It's going to break before you can even
Before you get anywhere.
Yeah. And, you know, I can even think back. I had this business idea. I was so excited about it. I told a bunch of people, and it was just like
Oh, no.
crickets or worse, right?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, that will never work. That's a stupid idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so deflating.
Yes. And that's exactly what Munroe's saying, right?
Yeah.
It's not about hiding your dreams forever,
Right.
but being really intentional about when and who you share them with.
Yes, 100%. It's about that timing, and it's also about finding your people.
Yes.
Right? The people who are going to be genuinely supportive as opposed to just giving you their unsolicited opinions
Right.
that chip away at your confidence.
So good. And I think that's such a good question for everybody listening to ask themselves. Have you ever held back from sharing a dream?
Yeah.
And what helped you decide when the time was right? Or who to share it with?
Yeah.
I think about, even just for me, it's like, okay, this feels safe. This person's not going to,
Right.
steal my idea or...
Right. Exactly. And it's recognizing, too, that sometimes sharing can be so empowering.
Totally.
But if it's done prematurely or with the wrong audience, it can be so draining.
Yes.
So finding maybe a mentor or a trusted advisor, somebody who you can share that with and get that feedback
Yes.
without it derailing your enthusiasm.
It's like finding that seasoned explorer who's navigated this path before.
Exactly.
And they can kind of be like, hey, watch out for that pitfall.
Right. 100%.
Love that. Okay, so we're protecting our dreams and visions. What's the next treasure that Munroe says we need to be guarding with our lives?
So his second point is about safeguarding our personal struggles,
Ooh,
which I think is so relevant, especially now.
it's so true.
We live in this world that's so obsessed with oversharing,
Yes.
right? Like vulnerability is almost trendy in a way,
Right?
but he really talks about how our struggles are sacred.
Mm.
They shape us, they refine us. And when we turn them into these public spectacles,
Yeah.
it can actually be really detrimental to our growth.
It's true. It's like he uses this really powerful analogy. He's like, imagine inviting everyone to critique a painting that's still in progress.
Right.
You haven't even stepped back and...
Developed your vision.
Exactly. And you've got everyone with a paintbrush coming at you.
Yes.
It's too much.
It's too much. And I think that's a great point, right? Because not all opinions are created equal.
Right. Exactly.
Right. You might have some people who are genuinely supportive. Right. And you might have others who are projecting their own insecurities. Or even worse,
Yeah.
I get to use that vulnerability against you.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so Munroe, he talks about the dangers of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the unsolicited advice. It's the judgment. It can even be exploitation.
Wow.
Because not everyone has our best interests at heart.
Right.
And he actually shares this example of a woman who was going through a divorce.
Oh, wow.
And she was very open about it with a lot of people. And it ended up becoming this whole thing.
Oh, no.
Became the talk of the town.
Yeah.
And it just amplified her pain so much.
Yeah.
And it turned this really private matter into this public.
Public fodder.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you think twice
Yeah.
about hitting post, right?
All right.
Makes you think twice. Right. So then how do you navigate that? Because it's not like we're saying, okay, suffer in silence.
Yeah.
But who are we sharing this with?
Yeah. Yeah.
These are the raw, unfinished parts of ourselves. Totally. It's about that discernment again, right?
Uh-huh.
And recognizing that vulnerability is so powerful, but it's most powerful when it's shared in a safe and supportive space.
Yeah.
So whether that is a therapist or a trusted mentor, a really close friend who you know has a track record of just offering you that support and not judgment.
Yes. Not trying to hijack your journey, but they're there to support you.
Right. They're like that hiking buddies that if you stumble, they're going to offer you a hand.
Exactly.
But they're not going to try and take over and hike for you.
Right. They're not going to tell you that you're doing it wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the idea that, our struggles, while challenging, are also these crucibles where we build resilience. Right. So if we're constantly putting it out there for everybody to see and weigh in on, it can actually diminish our own capacity to find that strength from within.
It makes me think about this quote that I heard one time, and it was something like, "True strength is bearing the unbearable with grace." And it just makes me think about, okay, how much are we putting out there? And is it really serving us, to process that? Okay, so we're protecting our dreams, we're protecting our struggles. What is the next treasure that Munroe says needs a security system?
This one's a big one, I think, especially now. He talks about safeguarding our financial status.
Ooh.
Remember when money used to just buy things?
Right. Not social media likes. Or
It's true. Or validation or,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like somewhere along the line, we started to confuse net worth with self-worth.
It's so true.
And that's what he cautions against, right? He's like, when you're constantly revealing your financial situation, whether you're doing really well or whether you're struggling, it can actually attract a lot of unwanted attention, and it can complicate your relationships.
It's like you're putting this beacon out, right?
Yes.
For opportunists or like energy vampires.
Yes, 100%.
And they're coming at you like...
But everybody's got an opinion all of a sudden, right?
Right. About your money. Like, oh, you should be investing in this.
Oh my gosh.
You should be doing this. And it's like, well, hold on a second.
Right. It's my money.
It's my business.
Right. And the thing is too, right, is if you're doing really well, you might attract these fake friends or these long-lost relatives are going to come out of the woodwork.
Oh my goodness.
With their investment opportunities.
Yes.
Which we all know. They probably heard it on a late night infomercial, right?
Right, exactly.
So that's one side of it, right? But on the other side of it, if you're struggling financially, sharing that can also, open you up to judgment, to unsolicited advice, even shame, which can then prevent you from actually reaching out and getting the support that you actually need.
Totally, yeah. If you can actually talk to somebody you trust about what's going on and what you're struggling with, that's different.
Yes.
Than just broadcasting it to the world.
Yes, 100%.
And Munroe, he actually tells a story in this talk. He talks about this entrepreneur who was really successful.
Okay.
And he shared this big investment that he was making.
Yeah.
And immediately was inundated with people.
Oh, wow.
With requests and proposals and people wanting a piece of the pie. And it almost derailed his whole business.
It's so true because we're almost like taught to think that bigger is always better.
Yeah.
And that if we're not growing at this like crazy exponential rate, then we're failing.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, how can we actually just be really solid where we're at?
Yes.
And make sure that we're not overextending.
Yeah, 100%.
Or inviting those energy vampires in.
Exactly.
So good. I'm curious, have you ever been in a situation where you felt that pressure to reveal more about your finances than you were comfortable with?
Especially when you're first starting out, right? There's almost this like weird pressure to present this image of success.
Totally.
Right?
Like,
even if behind the scenes you're
like eating ramen noodles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're like, 2 days ago I was eating ramen noodles, but I'm going to put this out on Instagram.
Right, exactly.
So I think navigating that can be tricky because our culture really does place a high value on transparency, especially when it comes to finances.
Totally.
Like, oh, well, if you're not willing to share that, then that means you're not being honest.
Yes.
But I think it's about, there's a difference between being open about your values.
Yes.
And just broadcasting your bank statement,
100%. So it's about being really intentional, not just about what we share, but who we're sharing it with and why, which kind of leads us perfectly into Munroe's next point, which is all about guarding our next big move.
Ooh, I like this one.
Right.
Yeah.
What do we have up our sleeve?
So this one really speaks to the power of strategy, which I think sometimes can be a little bit, again, counterintuitive.
Yes.
He compares it to a game of chess, right?
Okay.
If you're revealing all your moves from the get-go,
right,
you're probably going to lose.
That's a good point.
And I think in this world of hustle culture,
yes,
where we're constantly told to be putting ourselves out there, like every single move we make.
Document, document, document.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's something really, really powerful about embracing strategic silence.
I love that. It really is. I feel like, especially nowadays, we talk about going viral, like it's always a good thing.
Yes, exactly.
Right. But sometimes it's like, especially when it comes to those big moves, maybe a slow burn is the way to go.
100%. And Munroe's point is not that we stay silent forever, right?
Right.
It's about choosing the right moment.
Right.
To reveal your hand.
Yeah.
To really maximize your impact.
Love it.
And he gives this example of this woman. She was developing this health app, and she had this great idea, but she shared it really freely.
Oh, no.
And she ended up losing her first mover advantage.
Oh.
Because somebody else came in with a very similar product, beat her to market.
Wow.
Because she'd shown all of her cards too soon.
Yeah, that's tough because you get so excited about the idea that you want to tell everybody.
Yes.
And it's like sometimes it's better to just keep it close to the vest until it's ready, you know?
Exactly, exactly. And it speaks to that, again, that discernment of when to share and who to share with.
Right.
Right. Because if she had maybe shared it with a smaller group of trusted advisors.
Right.
People who had signed NDAs.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
It would have been a totally different story.
Totally. Okay, so we've got to protect our dreams, our struggles, our finances, our next big move. Are you ready for the final treasure that Munroe says we really need to kind of put a lock and key on?
I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay. This one I think it's so powerful because it's both so deeply personal and yet it's something that I think we can all relate to.
Yeah.
And he says that we need to be so cautious about sharing our deepest fears.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. Because we all have them, right? But he makes this really important distinction between acknowledging them privately and then broadcasting them for everyone to see.
Totally. And it's not about pretending we don't have fears.
Right.
It's not about this, putting on this, facade of being fearless.
Right.
It's recognizing that while vulnerability can be really powerful, it can also be exploited.
100%.
Right. Because when we're putting our deepest fears out there, sometimes it's like we're revealing, that chink in our armor.
Right, exactly.
And not everybody who sees that is going to have our best interest at heart.
It's so true.
Right.
And I think sometimes we can even think about, have you ever had that experience where, you share a fear with someone and it's almost like they want to push you.
Oh, I know.
To face it, which it comes from a good place.
Right.
But at the same time, it can almost backfire.
Totally. And Munroe actually gives this example in the talk about this artist who had this deep fear of public speaking.
Okay.
Right. And he was surrounded by all of these well-meaning people,
right,
friends, family, who kept pushing him to do speaking engagements.
Oh.
You've got to face your fear. You've got to get over it.
Oh, thinking that they were helping.
Right.
But it ended up backfiring because it actually intensified his anxiety.
Wow.
And it almost made him want to give up art altogether.
Wow. And he's an artist.
Yeah, I know.
That's tough.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can we create that space, whether it's for ourselves or for the people in our lives, where it's like, okay, I see you, I hear you, we're not going to force this.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to the fact that, courage isn't the absence of fear.
Yes.
Right? It's being able to move through those fears.
Yes.
And that often takes time.
It does. It's a process.
It's a process. It's deeply personal,
Yeah, it makes me think about what we were talking about earlier about discernment.
Yes.
Right? Who are we choosing to share these most vulnerable parts of ourselves with?
100%. Because when you do find those safe and supportive people,
yes,
it can make all the difference.
It really can.
And that's when the real growth can happen. It's like those people become almost like, how certain plants help other plants grow?
Yes.
They need that support system. It's like they become that for us.
100%. And it all comes back to this idea of, protecting these treasures, not because we want to keep them hidden away forever.
Right.
But because we're actually nurturing them. We're polishing them so they can eventually have this even greater impact.
Yes, I love that. So we're not just hoarding these treasures.
Exactly.
Right. It's more like we're giving them what they need.
Yes.
So that they can really shine.
Exactly.
Oh, I love this. Oh, my goodness. Well, I think this has been such an amazing deep dive, right? Thinking about the power of purposeful silence.
Yes.
And how it's not about hiding, It's about strategy. It's about intentionality.
Yeah, it's about stepping into that power.
It is. It's about owning our own journeys.
Yes, 100%.
I love it.
Love that.
Well, until next time, everybody, thanks for tuning in.
See you next time.